The purpose of this meeting is to conduct the business of the Gettysburg Area School District. Board of Directors meetings and community meetings are open to the public but not public meetings. All school district residents that wish to make public comment should sign in prior to the start of the meeting and request to speak during citizens' participation. School district residents wishing to speak to the board shall do so only during citizens' participation section of the meeting. The board will not tolerate public outbursts or disruptions, nor will it tolerate comments made outside of citizens' participation portion of the meeting. All public comment is welcome, and issues will be referred to the appropriate board, committee, or administrator. Comments will also be summarized in the official board minutes, which will be made available by contacting the business office. If everyone would please take a moment to silence your cell phones and electronic devices. Ms. Secretary, everyone is present with the exception of Mr. Hassinger, Cindy, and Jeremy Davis, who are all excused. If everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, this evening under notices and communications, it looks like we have James Geddes Elementary School update. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to come share some highlights from our school community this month. I'm excited to be here with you to share some very wonderful events that have gone on at James Geddes. When given reports to this board in the past, I've talked to you about, one time I was here, I talked about the PBIS initiative and how we're doing the Warrior Way at the elementary level and how that was going. Last fall, I brought a number of kids and a couple staff members who talked to you about how the implementation of our new reading series is going in the classroom and really sharing with you different activities at different grade levels. For tonight, I wanted to share with you the initiatives that we're trying to initiate and things that are going on this particular month of March to help build a more involved school community. So I'm going to highlight a few of those events, and then I have some very special guests that you've probably seen over to my left here who are going to, I think, be a very special treat for the board tonight. First, this month, we're in the middle of Math Madness. Now, everyone in the communities are in the middle of March Madness. We're in Math Madness, where at this time of the year, it's our biggest fundraiser for our PTO to help support our school and our students. We have it as a two-way program that's going on. One is the fundraiser that the PTO puts on and helps supports their efforts in supporting our school, while at the same time, the teachers in their classroom are building up math fluency, fact fluency, doing games and activities that really get the kids excited for increasing their math scores and their math proficiency. At the same time, we have a friendly competition where we're collecting donations for each grade, and we have a sort of bracket similar to the NCAA bracket where the classrooms are competing against one another. When one class gets knocked out, the other can still continue and share with the other buckets and the other classrooms. It's been a really fun event. They're really excited for it. The building really buzzes with excitement this time of year. It's our second year doing it, and they partly for the friendly competition, but they also know what they, as part of the reward that we want to give them at the end for meeting goals, and they've met a lot of goals so far. We're still collecting, but they've met a lot of goals. Is we're going to take a short trip over to the Gettysburg College. We'll have a chance to meet with the Gettysburg basketball teams, male and female. They'll talk to our students about what good sportsmanship is like, what got them to that level of collegiate athletics, and what they need to do to stay on track if that's something that they're interested in. So they help our positive behavior support initiative. At the same time, the kids, they really get to interact with the students and staff and the kids. And the kids really have a blast doing it. Some of them, their eyes are just wide open. First time seeing a facility like that, so it's a really great experience for them. At that event, we'll announce the winners of the March, or the Math Madness. Currently, we're down to our finals. We just announced those today, and it's Mrs. Groover's class and Mrs. Focus's class. The final tally will be announced that afternoon, and we'll announce the winner. And then we'll also have a chance at that to recognize the class that's most improved in their math proficiency. So we give out a little trophy, they have a little fun. we get back and there's a number of staff. Miss Nolte may be one. I'm not sure, but she wants to be. We have a number of staff that also at different levels of achievement. Some staff have graciously said they want to volunteer to get a pie in the face. So that's something that the kids really look forward to as well. I don't know why Miss Nolte's looking forward to it, but she is. So that's a little fun activity, but like I said, it really builds a positive school community. The school is really buzzing with that talk about that this month. Also, this Thursday, an upcoming event that we'd like all of our families to participate in is our family engagement night that our reading specialists and classroom teachers are putting together. This is a night for families to come out and work with some really fun reading challenge type activities, and they can do them together as a family. Every student that comes it's self-paced. You just go from room to room. We have staff members with different activities in each room. They will have a chance to have a photo session at the end, and every student will leave with a book for that night. So it's a really fun activity, and kudos to our reading staff for organizing that. But really all the other staff that participates in that and volunteers their time, looking forward to a really great event. Finally, our school just recently had our fine arts event where we have, I'm going to let Ms. Nolte talk about that in a little bit, but she'll give you more details about that. I just want to say from a principal's perspective and really looking out into that gymnasium and seeing two packed houses both nights, standing room only. I don't know how we would do an all-school event for all grade levels, just a couple grade levels, but it was the support that we get from our families is just wonderful, and the kids are really excited to show off their artwork. We had the book fair going on that night. It was just a really fun event, and I think you're going to be pleased with the group that we brought to here. Mrs. Nolte's going to do the introductions, but we wanted to, since that event's passed, we wanted just to share a taste of it for those who weren't able to attend. I know some of you were in attendance those nights. So Ms. Nolte, at this time, I'm going to let you do your introductions.
Hi, everyone. I'm Crystal Nolte, the general music and choir teacher at James Geddes Elementary School. March is Music in Our Schools Month, and the Fine Arts Nights at James Geddes were the first of many performances happening throughout the month district-wide. In our building specifically, Fine Arts Nights connects art, library, music, and physical education in an immersive experience for kindergarten through third grade students and their families. Our theme this year was based off of a popular children's book titled The Day the Crayons Quit by Drew Daywalt. The basic premise of the book focuses on a boy named Duncan who opens his crayon box one day to find out that all of his crayons have quit. And as each of the crayons are airing out their grievances based off their colors, Duncan ultimately decides to solve his problem by coloring a big picture and creating a rainbow. Bright and colorful artwork created by kindergarten through fifth grade students in art class with our teacher, Mrs. Savannah Minetta, filled the lobbies and hallways, and it's still hanging up to this day if you ever want to swing by and check it out. Our librarian, Mrs. Jen Daniels, led a successful book fair throughout the week where families and students could interact and purchase books on their way out of the event. Additionally, she worked with our student speakers who retold the story for audiences each night. Mrs. Pichelle Picatus, our physical education teacher, and I worked together to assign each class a color, and then we brought their colors to life with a variety of songs and motions. Students were encouraged to wear their class's color, which then created a gigantic rainbow when all 6 classes were combined together for a finale song. We thank you all for your continued support of the arts here in the Gettysburg Area School District, and my friends and I hope that you enjoy our rendition of the Rainbow Connection. Representing kindergarten, we have Ari Sainer. Can you wave your hand? Beautiful. Representing first grade, we have Jalen West, Nolan Gaston, and Quinn Gaston. Representing second grade, we have Elizabeth Hiller. And representing third grade, we have Caden Gaston and Rowan Sainer. And then it was this mic, correct? Do you guys want to speak up for me?
Nice job, everybody.
So that just shows you the talent that we have in the district, but also at James Geddes. They do a wonderful job. Our teachers and staff, and specifically for this music tonight under the direction of Miss Nolte, what a wonderful job. She has these kids well prepared and excited for music, and all of the special teachers excited for the arts. I want to thank this board for your support over the year, and encourage you to come out to the buildings. And I know some of you have been out to our performances. Like Miss Nolte said, if you want to see a little bit more of the Fine Arts Night, the artwork is still going on, or still over there displayed. We have that reading night coming up on Thursday, and there's other events throughout this spring. So just encourage you to come out. Thank you.
Nope, thank you very much. It looks like the kids already left. We were going to excuse them from the tax presentations, but I think they didn't want to hear about the budget. So be sure to tell them that we enjoyed it, and thank you very much.
VP Mike, would be okay to make a quick remark? Principal Wells, Ms. Nolte, again, a big thank you for everything that you do. I've participated in many of these events, literacy nights, fine arts, amazing warrior programs, and much more. The staff at James Geddes, I think, does a fantastic job, and that doesn't happen by accident. It takes leadership. So Principal Wells, I really thank you, and so on. And I have 2 grandkids that are attending over there, and I do a little high-low at the end of each day when I talk with them, and they rarely ever have a low. It's all about high stuff, and they're having a great experience. And I think that's indicative of about everybody there. Thank you.
All right, looks like we'll move on to Belinda. It looks like she has a budget presentation for us.
Good evening. So for this evening, we'll have a first look at our 25-26 budget and our process. So when we begin our budget, I just wanted to provide a board update because I don't know that we've ever really covered this in the past. It's just so you have an idea of the length and the timelines that we begin. So technically, we'll begin November 1st. We issue our budget prep memo out to our prospective building departments and our principals and the budget head secretaries. We ask that come back December 13th. And then, of course, over the holidays, we work on that regularly. We give guiding principles. We tell them basically it's the actual cost or the prior budget, whichever is lower. And all the additions need justifications if there are, as well as we review those at our meetings. So come January, we review the period. It's a complete review period with our departments, and January is our timeline for the board to adopt the resolution not to exceed the index. Now, what does that mean? Of course, if you adopt the resolution not to exceed, it means you can take additional time with the budget. Otherwise, we would have had to have an approval in December if we did not do the resolution to exceed. All that really says is the board will stay below the index that is developed by the state. Come February, the governor's budget is developed and presented. We wait for those numbers to hopefully capture any additions to our budget, as well as the county assessment report is first issued based upon the December 31st changes in assessment that we evaluate during the budget timeframe. Come March, here we are. Our audit was issued and it was presented in a summary fashion by our auditors. I will say, as of today, we received it and it is posted to our website, so anyone can go out there and view the final audit ended June 20 of 24. And also, as well as we begin the review of the budget in March. Before we move along, real just quickly, the budget process, when we begin to develop the budget process, we use multiple factors as which we, used the timeline before, but we also take a look at, the board budget resolution that we adopted. It's a management resolution with a 5-year goal, and that goal basically says that we are intent to balance the budget without reliance on fund balance by the year 26-27. So we were hoping and goal is to have a revenue expenditure balanced budget. And this continually is challenging, like every other district in the county and the state, but we try to build the budget in regards to using that, as well as making sure we're presenting a budget and maintaining fund balance according to our fund balance policies. Our revenue comparison overall from current year to next year, on a pie level shape, it doesn't look like it changed very much. We are still so locally dependent upon local sources of revenue, 68% current year, as well as what's projected next year. State funding is 31%. At one point in time, it was 42%, but overall, the changes with special education funding, it is remained consistent for us that we are locally funded more so than we are state funded. Here's a look at our preliminary revenue. There we go. Thank you. There's one more? There we go. Thank you. I appreciate it. So this side, and while the numbers are difficult, the presentation also will be available tomorrow on the website. You can see we like to present what our actual costs were for 23-24, and we present what our 24-25 current budget situation is, as well as our projected 25-26 budget. We are at this particular stage in time, we are presenting you a budget with a 0% tax increase. Of course, we can only go up. At this particular point, this is the first view and snapshot of the district's budget. So, of course, as we move forward, you will see we do have a deficit that we need to address in order to have a balanced budget by the timeline that takes to adopt it. Some of the things I like to point out here are actual numbers, of course, to the audit. Total revenues were $77 million. And while our 25-26 revenues are $75 million, the largest contributing difference is we were still in ESSER in 23-24. So you can see a large number of federal source funds of $5.5 million, whereas for the next budget cycle, we are down to $928,000, and that is mostly covering Title I, II, III, and IV. So ESSER funds have gone away, and so that is why the difference you'll see more actual revenue received in 23-24 versus 25-26. Likewise, you can see that the state sources have remained consistent over the actual to budget, and in essence, then really, with the numbers that are presented here, we have total revenues of $75.5 million, along with planned committed use of PSERS funds that we have PSERS money set aside that we look to provide additional resource income towards the budget. So overall, our total revenues are $75.9 million, which in the end, it's a 2.7% increase in total revenues.
Belinda, is there a way I could ask a question now so I don't forget my question? Is
Absolutely.
that okay? So looking at the federal sources, so all of those sources listed, in terms of the time frame for the budget, I'm thinking particularly federal sources. Is that a number, obviously it's different without ESSER, but is that a number for this year that we can count on? Does that change at a certain point?
It does. Very good question.
Okay.
So, for example, for the 24-25 school year, that number that's presented was based upon the anticipated revenues expected for Title I, II, III, and IV for the 23-24 school year. Come February, March timeframe, the state comes out with revised federal numbers, and typically they come in lower. So you can see that the budget is slightly lower presented for the 25-26 simply because the numbers have dropped. And again, they will likely probably change before we come to a finalization again. But we try to do the federal revenues as what we received the year before, simply because the total allocations are never completely known until mid to late budget cycle.
Thank you.
Great question. Moving along. So our preliminary expense, we have, just as a quick review here, obviously, we can see the actual numbers again in the column of 23-24, our current budget of 24-25, which in fact included a 1% tax increase on our revenue side. It will not affect expenditures. But for the 25-26, we'll see our expenditures listed. Just a quick rundown. Our expenditures for salary wages are $27.3 million, employee benefits $20 million, for a total of salary and benefits of $47.5 million, which is overall a 3.8% increase over budget. The salary wages are largely, the increase of the $1 million largely is attributed to settled contracts. So, and moving along forward, our 300 purchase of property services. This mostly is other professional services as well as LIU services for special education. The LIU special education is a large contributor here, and you can see that we're $6 million with a 10.2% increase over current year's budget for additional levels of services and needs that were added to the budget. 400 of purchase property services is pretty much M&R, and that's a 17.7% increase, going from 751,312 to 884,480. 500 other purchase services, and this is a fairly large number, and typically in the 500 category, the two largest drivers in the 500 category are charter schools, tuition, as well as transportation cost. And so we are budgeting $11.9 million, a $589,000 increase, 5.2%. Our supplies range from typical building level supplies as well as technology and software supplies. Our budget for the 25-26 is $3.9 million, a 17.1% increase. We have property and equipment listed there, of course. It actually has gone down slightly. Other objects, the 800, $3.3 million, gone up, 17.1% increase. This is the account that additionally attributes to another level of funding for the ACTI bound funding. And then 900, again, is our bond payments that we have presently in place. That is slightly gone down a little bit due to some payments being attributed. But overall, our expenditures are $80 million. And that's an overall increase of 5%. I'll go a little bit further into some more detail as we move forward through the slides. But overall, we have, for the budget, we have an unreconciled difference of $2.5 million.
Belinda, would you again repeat what else included in the 500 category?
Yes. The 500 category, the largest drivers in 500 category is charter schools, transportation cost, as well as other tuition cost. Now, I know, Mr. Moyer, you're going to ask me next, right off the tip of your tongue, how much is our charter school cost? So we ended our charter schools cost at the end of 24 with $4.9 million is an actual cost. Our current level of budget is 4.8, so we've already exceeded our charter school cost from actual to budget, and we're anticipating it to be just a little over $5 million for the 25-26 school year.
And that includes cyber charter with brick and mortar charters,
Yes.
Vita Charter School, the Montessori.
Yes.
Is almost $5 million.
Correct.
Gotcha.
That's correct.
If possible, if you could break that down for us at some point, I would appreciate that.
You're looking for just the cyber versus the bricks and mortar?
I'm meeting with legislators on Friday, and it would be helpful to know, especially the cyber. Thanks.
Okay, sure. Okay. Any other questions on that slide? Okay, great. Thank you. So what's it going to take to balance our budget? Just in a snapshot here, we have revenues without fund balance utilization, $75.5 million. Our expenditures are $80 million, so we have a gap or an unreconciled difference of $4.5 million. So we are, at this stage, we are proposing to use some of PSER's commitment fund balance of $345,902, and we're also proposing the unassigned fund balance that is available through the course of our audit of doing a better than projected job during the course of the audit. So it's $1.5 million that we plan to use of part of an unassigned fund balance. So again, our total available funds to use, $1.9 million. So we have a $4.5 million deficit. We're going to use $1.9 million towards that deficit, which means we have a gap minus available funds. We need to find a balanced approach to $2.5 million. Now, our policy states that we must maintain 6% fund balance, unassigned fund balance at all times. So that equates to that number, $4.8 million listed at the bottom of that slide. That is the minimum fund balance that we need to carry as per our policy. Some variables that we have, of course, on revenue side, we already took a look at the basic ed subsidy. It's a minimal increase. It's actually less than 0.5%. Historically, we would get anywhere from 2 to 2.5%. We're less than 0.5% increase, at least what's projected with the governor's budget. There's no adequacy supplement. There's no tax equity supplement coming to Gettysburg. It is pretty much a small portion of basic ed. There is no change in our Ready to Learn, and our special education cost subsidy increased about $100,000 while our costs continue to rise over and above what IDA has helped in the past for us. So, and again, I just want to mention that our adjusted index not to exceed is 4.8%. That is our adjusted, so we're able to raise taxes if the board so chooses to address the deficit by 4.8%. Again, the variables of labor on our expenditures, it's the largely portion of $1 million is attributed to labor cost increases due to contractual obligations. Our benefits follow the labor cost. You know, of course, we have our PCERS, medical, and we are seeing an uptick in our workman's comp insurance benefits as well. So those all are attributed to the increase in benefits. Again, our transportation cost is rising as well because the transportation contract is a factor of an index. And so if that index rises, then our expenditure costs rise up as well. Again, our cyber tourist charters continue to climb. Utilities, natural gas, and electricity are up. We are in the process of negotiating, and so our consortium, and so they may come down, but at this particular point in time, there's an anticipation of them rising. Now, athletics, in the course of the audit, of course, we have transportation, uniform, and other program costs that are a part of the budget. We have our second year support in the ACTI bond funding, which is consistent with other county districts. So we've put a second year of supports into the expenditure side. And then, of course, other factors involved that are in the responsibility basically due as a result of inflation. We're seeing inflation in our households. We're seeing inflation in our general fund budget as well. So if you'll recall, the previous slide I said we were $4.5 million. This is kind of like a higher level of where those funds are residing, with the end balance being $4 million. So $4 million is attributed here with another $500,000 in other accounts, not necessarily worth combining and providing that information, but there's $500,000 yet in addition to. But the most all is what you have mentioned and seen before. You have your labor, your PCERS, all other benefits is assigned, special education and other professional services. The numbers are all in addition to the current year's budget. As you can see, the charter school tuitions are $465,000 is what the increase was. And our ACTI bond funding for the second year is listed there as $371. So areas that we need to address yet, obviously, with the considering of how to balance $2.5 million. So we're going to really need to take a look at revenue funding for a second year of ACTI. If we build expenditures are in to help support a bond for ACTI, we're going to need to have a revenue stream as well. I know the current year's budget, we did a 1% strictly for ACTI. I would recommend that early again for ACTI as well, because ultimately we need to build in $1 million worth of funding to help support ACTI's initiatives as they decide to grow and to build and to expand their programs. We also need to address revenue funding to address the negotiated contracts. I'm unable to present to you $1 million worth of cuts to offset $1 million worth of salaries. Again, we'll need to address revenue funding to address that. Our county real assessment data, that'll come out again with another update, probably coming up here in May, right before we propose a final budget. So we will update the budget at that particular point in time for the assessment data that has been provided to us. Student support cost, we'll take a look at, and we need to support that. So our comprehensive plan, as it is the initiative to support special education, is really student support cost, as well as in terms of providing additional level of services for students. We want to continue that, but we also need to address how we're going to continue that with support services. Again, any expenditure reductions as directed by the board would be something that we need to address yet. If anyone has any questions or ideas as to where, I'd be happy to share. But obviously, any directive by the boards, we would need to go back to our administrators and look at the budget closely. As well as we continue to monitor and update the revenue and expenditures. So as for items that we know or not know, we will project the development coming in as well, along with assessment data. So it's still much a work in progress. This is the worst case scenario at this particular point. A worst particular point, 0% increase and $2.5 million to balance. That's the worst case. It can only go up from there. So I just wanted to outline what those variables are. As for a timeline now, our next slide, we're going to be coming back before the board April 7th to discuss more on the budget. We're going to be reviewing and proposing a final budget. We need to have a proposed final budget approved. It's not saying it's a done deal. It's basically approving it for advertisement, so it sits for 30 days before the final adoption. Therefore, we're in May, then we'll recommend that proposed final budget and continue to discuss the budget again, May 19th. And our goal is to have an approved final budget by June 16th. So it'll be an action and vote item for that board meeting. And of course, then our deadline to file with PDE is June 30th, as always.
One other quick question for you, just to make sure I understood it correctly. When looking at the variable item on student support costs, the slide prior, you had mentioned something about IDEA funds, and have we lost funding there? Or you're just saying there's also an increased need?
No, IDEA was to help support special education funding needs for different levels of student needs. There are tiers, and while we do receive revenue from IDEA, it's not quite enough to cover the services that we provide for our students and for our families.
Supplemental money to add to it. Okay.
Yeah, there was, when IDEA was first issued, back whenever I was still a student, there was at least a commitment on the federal government's part to fund IDEA. And for a while, they underfunded it at about 50%, and that number continues to decrease. So the numbers of identified students continue to grow. The number of students with more significant needs continues to grow, and the costs grow, but the federal dollars that support it continue to wane. Therefore, you supplant other local and state dollars to try to continue to do what the law requires you to do without the funding necessary.
Yeah, it's unfortunately trending in the wrong direction.
Because you're gonna, it's like going to a restaurant. I have a little brother that brings $5 to the restaurant and orders a steak. You know what I mean? And I still let him eat. But there are things that you're going to do just because the law dictates that you have to do it, and it's also just the right thing to do. But it's severely underfunded, and it's going in the wrong direction. I think more because of the costs rising than the support waning. But if support doesn't grow exponentially, the growing costs are just outpacing it to a significant degree.
Got it. That's what I assumed. I just wanted to check. Thank you.
Sure.
Belinda, I'm assuming that you're planning on, because of the timeline of Harrisburg letting us know our subsidy compared to when we have to have our budget approved, I'm guessing you're planning on level funding from the state?
What I have planned in this particular budget, so it's already in the budget, is the proposed governor's starting point for this current year. So anything that is prepared by the governor for increases for 25-26 year is not included in this budget because there's no guarantee that you're going to get it. So when documents come out and indicates how much you're getting, they basically start at your current level of funding. Yeah. That current level of funding is always different from what we have, so I'm using that, which is already equated into it.
I appreciate you doing that. I think that's smart. Over the years that I've been on the board, there were times where our projections of expenses and revenue were fairly significantly off compared to the actuals, and I think that's something Dr. Perrin and you have done a good job of getting it closer. So chances are by the end of this school year, what we can add to our fund balance probably is not going to be all that significant. You have any read on that at this point?
Very good question. I know Ms. Myers has asked me a similar question. We have our budget projected forecast that we provide to the board on an ongoing basis. So as of the recent report, I think it's January 31st, there are several categories that we are negatively running in the red. So projections, it could very well change month to month, year to year. Will we meet our revenue projections? That's our goal. Our goal is to always try to do better than what we've planned for, which means not only my office, but all the other departments are running fiscally, or being prudent and running fiscally sound. They may or may not have ordered the supplies or the equipment or taking into account things that they had planned on budgeting. So it's not just my department that's, gaining in revenue and so forth. It is a combination across the district. But the goal would be to make sure that we're getting to that balance. And yes, it's great to have to do better than what you expected, simply because in our district, we roll that into the fund balance, and then we're using that again to balance the following year's budget. So it's not lost. It is you earn additional money for a part-time job. You're putting it into a savings account, or you set it aside. So once you have it there and used, you can use it for something else until it's gone. And then, of course, you've got to build up that balance again. But something very similar. I'm hoping with the accruals that we need to have at the year end, I'm hoping that we are right on target. But at this stage, we have 6 more months of reporting. And so our goal is to remain fiscally sound by all means, simply because if we're less than that, it means we have less funds to carry us over during the summer months to make our bills until the tax revenue comes in.
And then finally, you mentioned that you're going to post on our website the audit results and whatnot. Was there a presentation already to the board? I know I missed one about a month ago. That's probably the time.
Yes.
So I can look at the findings. There were really no significant findings as usual, I'm guessing.
No significant findings, but the audit is available and the summary is on the website.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And just to go back to the previous point, on the second point on your question, Al, obviously when building budgets, before we get too accurate with having revenues and expenditures kind of pan out and zero out, we've got to get rid of that need that we have on the back end, because if we're using $1.5 million of fund balance to plug a gap every year, we don't want to. We want to make sure that that's there. So that's just adding that piece to Belinda's comment.
We'll be back before the board on April 7th to discuss more on the budget, and so there's more to come. Any questions, feel free to touch base with me and/or let me know in advance for the next meeting, and we'll definitely cover it there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda. That wraps up notices of communications. So next we'll move on to citizens' participation. Looks like we have 7 speakers this evening, and our first speaker will be Mr. Hunter Arison.
Is this thing on? Is this on? Do the right thing, hire Heiser.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Our next speaker will be Ms. Jamie Gebhardt.
Okay. So, as you guys know, everybody knows what's going on here in Gettysburg. It's all over Facebook. And of course, everybody's talking about it. So, we have a friend whose son played football for the Chambersburg Trojans. During his time there, he started for 2 years and played against many future D1 and D2 players. He could have played at the next level. However, he approached his coach about helping with finding a college to play at. He was told, "That's not my job." It's no secret that in the 8 to 9 years as a coach, he was not respected by his players, parents, or the community. He only had 2 winning seasons that they were early on in his career. A lot of the athletes stopped playing when they hit 9th grade because of the coach. Our athletes, however, love Coach Heiser, and he'd never tell a player, "That's not my job," as evidenced by the many stories shared by his current and past players. My point here is, a coach is more than just checking the right boxes. It's about commitment to the team and its athletes on and off the field, and the guy you hire to replace Coach Heiser might just be a coach like they had in Chambersburg. If you truly care about what's best for the Gettysburg football program, then stop pointing fingers and listen to these players. Rehire Coach Heiser and end this madness. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Ms. Jody Leedy.
I'm here this evening because of, after seeing the cooperative sport agreement of football between Gettysburg and Fairfield, I think the public should understand that this new program for the football cooperative head coach is extremely concerning. Nowhere in this agreement does it say that a new position should be created for this cooperative to exist. In fact, in the definition section, administration is defined as the superintendent of schools, business manager, athletic director, high school principal, and other employees necessary to fulfill the administrative responsibilities contemplated under this agreement. On page 2 of the agreement, establishing cooperative sport, the name of the sport is football, and the host school is Gettysburg Area School District. Where does it say this is a new program? On page 3, team names and uniforms, it states, the cooperative sport shall compete under the name of the host school and its mascot and logo. That would be Gettysburg football, and that is not new. At what point did this make the school board think there needed to be a directive to create a new program and new position? Next, in the coaching section, it states, each coach for the cooperative sport shall be appointed by the host school, subject to concurrence by the administration of the non-host school. Gettysburg has a football coach, Matt Heiser, and according to the news and parents that have been sharing their concerns, Fairfield has been in support of Coach Heiser the entire time. Finally, on the last page of the agreement, under the miscellaneous item letter D, it states, this agreement has been approved by a vote of the school board directors for each party at the meeting, duly advertised to the open to the public. Fairfield hosted its own Q&A session for the public to attend. Did the general public in Gettysburg have that same opportunity? The micromanaging that some members of the school board have been doing is not beneficial to our school district and students. In fact, it's quite embarrassing. We hope Fairfield can join this co-op with Coach Heiser as their head coach, as they expected when they voted on the co-op. You have already heard from many of the athletes how important it is to see Coach Heiser come back as their coach. Imagine the hostile environment you create if this co-op were to start with a new coach because of this deemed new program and posting. If you're doing what's best for our students, which is your job, then you still can make this right, and I hope that you do.
Our next speaker is Justine Sigg.
Good evening. I'm here again to express my concerns regarding the football team's head coach and the policies and procedures of the school board. It remains unclear where the breakdown in communication is occurring. Despite numerous phone calls, emails, and meetings aimed at addressing these issues, there appears to be a reluctance to take responsibility for any shortcomings. While personnel matters are handled by the athletic director and not accessible to the school board, it's important to remember that personal grievances should not be addressed within the board's role. Your role as elected officials requires objectivity. The policy committee convenes once a month, and after voicing my concerns about certain board policies at the last 2 meetings, I'm perplexed by the cancellation of the meeting that was scheduled for March 11th. I was informed that administration and the solicitor are reviewing updated policies for the April meeting. However, when I reached out to a board member regarding specific policies, they indicated that no new recommendations had been presented. This lack of new recommendations is a significant issue. When the policy chairperson should hear the concerns from the community but has done nothing to report, it indicates an even larger problem. I must reiterate that local board procedures need to be reviewed. Our district is investing over $90,000 annually for an athletic director, yet it appears that the school board is not allowing him to fulfill his responsibilities. Why is this the case? If we have an athletic director, why is he unable to fill positions? Conversations with another athletic director and superintendent in surrounding school district have revealed that only open positions are posted at the end of their seasons, and the athletic director supervises all coaches and supplemental contracts. If this school board is wanting to open positions at the end of each sports season, which is a demoralizing practice to the coaching staff in our district, then there should be a policy added to number 308 that requires coaches to be approved immediately. But beyond policy, we are still being told that this is a new position. That raises even further questions. Why didn't we have a Q&A session like Fairfield did? Why was information not shared with the public at the school board meeting on March 3rd, as requested by our president during the prior meeting? Why wasn't there additional information presented, but instead approved as an action item? Is this a violation of the Sunshine Act? The community deserves transparency regarding how policies are managed and the rationale behind any perceived mismanagement. As I stated in a previous meeting, and will state again, this school board must improve its support for staff, coaches, and our students. Personal grievances are not objective and have no place in executive session meetings, which have ultimately led us to this discussion tonight. I urge you to work diligently to resolve the internal problems and avoid projecting a negative image on our school district, which many of us are proud to represent. This situation is unfair to our district and the community. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ms. Jill Whitmer.
Good evening, board members. I come to you tonight as a request to read an email to the board on behalf of Mr. Chris Thompson, who had a work conflict. Mr. Thompson is the newly elected Gettysburg Midget Football President. Mr. Thompson would like to notify the board on additional details. This is Mr. Thompson's email. On Thursday, February 13th, I saw the Facebook posting about Heiser's job being reposted, so I texted Mike Dickerson of why, and I was told it was an HR issue that couldn't be discussed. But it went on to a conversation I wasn't comfortable with in talking about how we would make the new coach be part of the youth program as a board member and turning it into a true feeder. I tried to stay mutual in the conversation, but he was insisting I come to the board meeting to speak on reasons why to get rid of Heiser. With all of the other stuff coming out and how this situation was handled, I feel like there is an agenda behind the whole thing. When I saw all the information over the next few days, it was clear what his intentions were. The night of the last board meeting, I was contacted by Sigmund. He congratulated me for being elected president of the Youth League and went directly into talking about how it was time to move on from Heiser. And when I was questioning his motives about a valid replacement or questioned the timing of everything and how it makes everyone look bad, he basically said, I have to go to a meeting, and hung up and texted me, time to move on. I feel both these gentlemen were trying to abuse my friendship to try to fit their narrative. Mr. Dickerson also has reached out via phone call to me on March 5th. In that conversation, he agreed that the situation of hiring a football coach should not be taking place at this time. It was evident during our conversation that he was directing these mishaps towards the Gettysburg administration and Dr. Perrin. He also stated that it was an HR issue and that he could not legally talk about the situation. In regards to Mr. Thompson's email, Mr. Dickerson and Mr. Sigmund sought out and solicited Mr. Chris Thompson. When Mr. Thompson was contacted and requested to attend a board meeting to speak out against Coach Heiser, he was being solicited to speak on their behalf. This seems to be a violation in the ethics policy 2, number 3 and 5. When he did not agree with either of the board members, they continued to contact him via text, and on the evening of Friday, March 14th, a family member of Mr. Dickerson continued to try to contact Mr. Thompson well into the late hours of the evening. I received a text from Mr. Thompson at 11:37 p.m. that this family member was bombarding him with phone calls. According to the PA statutes titled 65 PA in regards to public officers, in Section A, no public official or public employee shall engage in conduct that constitutes a conflict of interest. Since this appears to be a conflict of interest, Section J of that statute is a voting conflict. I would hope, since the board has been enlightened of the above factual information, that Mr. Sigmund and Mr. Dickerson are removed from voting on any agenda item that has to do with the hiring of any football coaching staff, and they should also be removed from any committees that has to do anything with Gettysburg Fairfield Co-op. This also correlates with the board's policy 012, conflict of interest number 9. Thank you, and if any board members would like Mr. Thompson's email, I have copies available.
Our next speaker is Wade Leedy.
I'm standing before you once again to discuss the circumstances surrounding the opening of the head football coaching position here at Gettysburg. It is very evident that there was a coordinated effort by certain members of this board to use the excuse of the football co-op agreement with Fairfield to fulfill their long-standing goal of removing Matt Heiser as the head football coach. For years, these individuals have publicly stated their dislike of Coach Heiser to anyone who would listen. In fact, both myself, my wife, and my daughter have had numerous personal conversations about this subject with one or both of these members dating back to 2021. Over the last 2 weeks, I have had discussions about this subject with other board members. The conclusion that can be drawn from these discussions is that these specific board members, through the use of lies and exaggerations, have manipulated the opinions of other members who were not familiar with athletics or football to believe that there was something inherently wrong with the leadership and culture of the football program. This couldn't be further from the truth. You need to look no further than the student athletes and parents who showed up and spoke in support of Coach Heiser at the last 2 board meetings. For further proof, the football team was the only fall sport to not receive any negative feedback from the end-of-year parent surveys this year. And the athletic director's end-of-year evaluation of Coach Heiser was satisfactory. I am asking everyone in this room right now to believe what you saw with your own eyes. You saw the players here in attendance, you heard the passion from those who spoke, and you've seen the outcry in the community about this decision. If something was so wrong with Coach Heiser, where was the public support for his removal? Again, believe what you are seeing with your eyes, not what someone else is telling you. For the last 3 weeks, we have been told that this is a personnel issue. If this is truly a personnel issue, then surely it is documented. Surely it is documented in this folder, because this folder contains copies of records that exist in Coach Heiser's athletic and HR files. Coach Heiser has given me permission to share the contents of this folder with any board member that wishes to view them. Please see me after the meeting if you would like to see them. But I'll save you the time now and let you know that there is nothing in this file that warrants his removal. I also want to make it perfectly clear that this is a personal issue, not a personnel issue. If it really was a personnel issue, then why are certain board members calling and texting the president of Gettysburg Midget Football and asking him to show up at previous board meetings to show support for getting rid of Coach Heiser? I have been given permission from the GMF president to share these text conversations. Right here, you'll see them. To share these text conversations that I'm holding up. These text conversations took place between the GMF president and 2 board members. One conversation is in response to the GMF president submitting a letter to the school board detailing his view about the opening of the head football coach position, and the other is with a different board member right before February 18th meeting. Both of these conversations illustrate that this is nothing more than a personal issue for them. Please see me after the meeting if you wish to view copies. As I said in my opening statement, it is very apparent that there is a coordinated effort by certain board members to remove Matt Heiser as the Gettysburg football coach. The proof is what lies in the personnel files of Coach Heiser and the text messages between 2 board members and the GMF president. It should now be clear to everyone in this room that these 2 members have abused their powers as school board members to remove a coach who has served this district for 13 years and has done nothing to warrant removal. While no laws have been broken, it is obvious that the 2 of you are ethically corrupt and morally bankrupt. And in the end, your actions have done nothing but harm the student athletes that you have promised to serve. You have violated the trust of the voters, you have violated the trust of the GASD community, and you have violated the trust of the students in this district. And that is why I'm calling for the immediate, the immediate resignations of board members Tim Sigmund and Mike Dickerson. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ms. Kathleen Pratt. Our next speaker is Ms. Kathleen Pratt.
Use it again and you're out.
I heard nothing. I'm sitting right.
We're going to maintain order, or I'll suspend this meeting. I'll go into adjournment.
Sorry, Mrs. Pratt.
Ms.
Floor
Pratt,
is yours.
the floor is yours.
My name is Kathleen Pratt. I served as a school director from 2017 to 2021. I know that most of us who serve on the school board do so because we care deeply about the kids in our community. We now know of the deep cuts faced by the U.S. Department of Education. I'm sure you share my concern about what these cuts will mean to our school district. In our current budget, we rely on just under $1 million in federal funds. The majority of these federal funds support Title I efforts that provide educational opportunity for our most vulnerable students at Franklin Township, James Geddes, and Lincoln Elementary Schools. These federal funds also support, out of our budget, students who live in our district but attend non-public schools. As you know, our district uses Title I funding to pay for our reading specialists in our K-5 buildings, their salaries and their benefits, instructional supplies to support supplemental reading services, parent and family engagement, and contracted services with the LIU to provide Title I services to students who live in the district and attend non-public schools. Our current budget allocation to accomplish this very important work is just under $650,000. I look forward to learning from the board as it moves into this budget season, how it will navigate federal funding cuts without sacrificing our families to those cuts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Pratt. So we're going to move on to routine approvals. I do have a request to separate one item, which is 5.5. So I would like to motion to separate and approve 5.1, which is the agenda, 5.2, which is our financial report, 5.3, which is the approval for Jacoby Transportation, 5.4, which would be the approval for E&B Transportation, and 5.6, our human resources.
Excuse me, Vice President Dickerson. Is it possible, again, since it's 3 times in a row that we've had a number of people with the same issue, without divulging personnel issues or confidential information, that Dr. Perrin or someone could at least give a report at where we are in the process for the selection of our fall athletic coaches? Can we at least give people that much information?
Yeah, we can wait. We can wait until we get to notices and communications.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
Program reports. So can I get a motion to separate 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, and 5.6?
So moved. Second.
Do we have any questions?
So we're voting on those 4, correct?
Yep, that's a motion to approve and separate, and approve. Are there any questions on 5.1, which is the agenda, 5.2, which is the financial report, 5.3 and 5.4 are transportation approvals, and 5.6 is our HR recommendations? Hearing no questions, roll call. Al?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Yes.
So that leaves 5.5, which is the approval for our solicitor. Can I get a motion to approve 5.5?
So moved.
Second.
Question?
I was the one that asked to separate it, and I'm just kind of disappointed that I'm finding out that this is happening. I mean, mergers don't happen in a few days or even a few weeks, so obviously there was some talk about this, and I'm sure that somehow the administration knew that there was a merger coming, and I think it would only have been fair for them to talk to us and see if we wanted to look at hiring somebody different.
Would it be appropriate to give Brooke a few minutes to share a little bit of what's happening?
Yeah, I'm happy to. We informed all of our clients at the same time. Gosh, you're going to test my chronology here. Would have been 3 weeks ago or thereabouts. The exact day is not coming to me, and we made a public announcement all at the same time, and all of our clients received inquiries relative or updates relative to the transition from our firm to joining this other firm. We're very excited about the prospects here. We will double the size of our education law practice, which means the capacity to address things more efficiently and have broader-based support and more detailed support when we need it. For purposes of this community kind of getting to know that firm, many of you may know the former school law firm of Kegel, Kell, Almy, and Graham, longtime school law solicitors. Some of them were practicing when I was a young lawyer 20 years ago. Great friends with our firm. They joined this firm about 2 years ago, so they were a practice not unlike Stock and Leader. Joined a bigger firm, and we utilized part of their experience as certainly a way of judging whether it would be a good fit for us in school law. So we feel really confident. They're a lot like us. Many of you know them within the school law community. They're friends of ours. They're trusted colleagues. They're excellent advisors. And we feel like the framework and the platform will allow us to sort of enhance our ability to support. Additionally, what you'll see in the engagement letter is the capacity to do things a little bit more efficiently. We've added some additional rate cuts for our paralegals, which we're really proud of because we've got excellent paralegals, but they're not lawyers, and we want to make sure we're using them really efficiently. So from a capacity perspective, as well as I think the financial end, we're really sensitive to our school district clients and want to make sure we hit that on the nose. We're excited about this. We think it's good for our school law clients. And we certainly provided that information as soon as we could publicly provide it, which was coordinated with this other firm and sort of subject to those requirements. So that's the snapshot, but I'm happy to take questions. There's a lot more in detail I could give you.
Any additional questions?
Not a question, but a comment. I've worked with Stock and Leader for a long time in my previous roles in school leadership. And the fact that they're expanding even more and adding more expertise to their team through this collaboration, I think can only be benefits to the schools that they serve. So I would suggest strong support for maintaining their services.
Thank you. And Dr. Dalton's not here today, but she wanted me to express how much she's appreciated working for this board. She is home with the flu, and I will pass that along to her. But she is also very excited about this opportunity. I know that from her personally, and we've had many hours of discussion about it. And she looks forward to serving this board for as long as you will. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any additional questions? All right, hearing none, roll call. Al?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Michelle?
No.
Alice?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, so moving on to items for board action, 6.1, which is the Gettysburg Middle School Mathematics Resource. Can I get a motion to move 6.1 forward?
So moved.
Second.
Questions on 6.1?
I have a question.
Sure, Michelle.
Dr. Massner, we had to talk last time.
Math still hasn't changed, just put that out there.
That's good to know. So this is for the middle school,
Correct.
and I didn't come in and review what you had. I went online and I went, talked to some friends who have used this program in other districts too. When are we going to be looking at the elementary school?
So the elementary actually has narrowed their options down to 2. We have some presentations happening within the next few weeks. We're going to look at piloting a program K through 5, either for the entire school year next year or for part of it, with an implementation for the 26-27 school year.
And is that program going to push basics, multiplication tables?
We actually are both companies we're talking to, we are expressing a need for support in fact fluency, so yes.
Any additional questions on math? All right, hearing none, roll call. Ryan?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Moving on to 6.2, Administration Building Renovations and Design Proposal. May I get a motion to move that forward?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on 6.2? All right, hearing none, roll call. Al?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Moving on to 6.3, the 2025 to 2028 District Comprehensive Plan. I get a motion
So
on
moved.
6.3.
Second.
Any questions on 6.3?
Not a question, but a comment. Once again, I want to thank Dr. Matzer for him facilitating and leading us through that whole process. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say something.
Michelle?
Me again. Actually, I want to thank Mr. Lusk because I had some questions about the plan, and I actually went to Mr. Lusk, and he clarified, so it made a little more sense.
The NOCD question.
Yes,
Yep,
the NOCD question, so thank you.
of course.
Any additional questions? All right, roll call. Ryan?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That moves us along to our informational items, which there are none, I don't believe, this week. No information items, so we'll go to board committee reports. We do have a policy committee scheduled for April 8th at 4 p.m. in the administration building. Anything for you, Al? You have a meeting going up this Friday, you did say?
Yep. Thank you, Vice President Dickerson. I am meeting with legislators on Friday morning. I have several questions and concerns regarding them, but related to this whole issue with policy, though, here, I do think it would be moving forward for us to look at our policies and practices for approving co-curricular supplemental positions, including athletic coaches. I think we really should stop saying, or the rumors out there that the Fairfield Co-op has anything to do with not renewing our current football coach. I just think that that just causes animosity among the kids. That's unnecessary. I think selection of personnel outside of key district office positions should be the sole responsibility of our admin team, who we pay well for those jobs. And every coach or supplemental position needs to know within 2 weeks of the end of their season whether they are coming back or not and the reason why. Thank you.
Anything in facilities and finance, Tim?
I believe our meeting's this Thursday? This Thursday, the 20th.
At 4 p.m.? Yes. All right, so that brings us to program reports.
At the request of Dr. Moyer, Dr. Matzner, give an update on the process for filling the position.
So we understand the time of year that we're in and the importance of it as it relates to the head football coach. The position has been posted. It comes down midnight tonight. It's the deadline to apply. We're looking to conduct interviews very early next week, and we'll move on from there.
All right, so that brings us to our calendar of events.
Mike, hold on.
I was say,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I didn't know exactly when to say my stuff, but I'll add it to items from the floor. So kind of carrying along with what people are already talking about. It is mid-March and on a Tuesday night nonetheless, so I wrote stuff down. So if I'm not looking at people, that's why I'm going to try and keep myself a little bit more honest. I want to start by saying thank you to the community for the past 3 meetings now, this one included, for coming and speaking. I think it can be difficult sometimes when there's a lot going on for people to feel like, you know, speaking to the board of directors and for hearing whatever's happening in the community. But in my opinion, having people involved and sharing their experiences is a big way that the board can know how issues are impacting parts of our school community. I don't think that that can be assumed. So thank you for your time coming in to talk to us about it all. I also just want to take a second to share a little bit about this position as I was thinking about the last couple of meetings. So as I see it as an elected official, it's my goal to continue learning about all the topics that come across our board action and agendas. And to be transparent with all of you, the reality is that I don't and won't know everything. But the way that I look at it is the best I can do is to ask questions to learn more and to make sure that any new information that is presented that I receive is taken into consideration moving forward from that point. So to me, kind of carrying the through line of the policy, that's where my head is. To me, it's crucial that board policies we have in place and the ways that we carry those out are done in a way that meets the needs of our students and programs in the school district. And I know that a couple of community members have spoken about this. I also know that Dr. Moyer just talked about that as well. So I'm specifically looking at policy 308. For those of you that haven't read policy 308 or don't have it in front of you, I'll read the parts that are written down that apply to our supplemental contracts. It states that all supplemental extracurricular coaching positions shall be filled by persons appointed by the board on an annual basis, and that supplemental contracts for each position shall be issued upon appointment by the board. So our current practice as it stands right now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that for the fall coaches, at least this year, this is what we did, it was to issue those appointments from the board in August. So despite applications closing at the end of the sports season, whatever that sport was, coaches then, according to that policy written the way it is, wouldn't officially be hired until August. So to me, in my opinion, I view that as a large liability issue for our coaches, not just a football coach, but any coach in that position, because there's this kind of limbo for months before August, post the end of the season till August. So our fall sports programs, as our football community has brought very clearly to our attention, do have more than that. They have spring training, summer sessions, preseason camp, and many other things happening before that August approval. It's my opinion, and I'll share a personal thing. As a person who holds my own supplemental contract for marching band, athletic adjacent, if you will, in my district, that coaches should not have to wait for August for approval when the season starts well before that. I wouldn't do that if I were teaching my marching band students over the summer without a contract. So now looking at the actual policy, I did notice that there aren't currently any administrative guidelines for it dictating the specifics of when we approve coaching contracts. So my wondering, and this might be solicitor question, but just in general, just saying it out loud, my wondering is if we can simply give a directive as a board to our administrative team in the meantime to send us coaching contracts for board approval as soon as our athletic director and his team have their recommended candidates for any contract at the end of their season. So this is not exclusive, in my opinion, to football. This is any coaching that goes on. I'm not sure if that's something we can do, but I would rather do that than wait until the April 11th meeting to get it written down, since we currently are kind of just saying we get them in the fall, and it's not written down as it stands. So in addition, before somebody answers that question, not to add too many, but this is my last one, I promise, I would like to add this item, kind of like what Dr. Moyer said, to our next policy meeting so that we can get a more official wording written down for the administrative guideline moving forward. This shouldn't need to continue to be an issue since we now have that information and it's negatively impacting our kids. It should be something that we address.
I'd like to interject here.
Yeah.
I think everyone in the room is forgetting something. You weren't a part of the board when we had coaching issues. And with that being said, these policies were changed because of situations that this board was presented with based on lack of administration's help. We enacted some things to protect our students. I'm not going to elaborate on that. I'm pretty sure everyone in the room can figure it out. But the bottom line is there was a reason why these things exist now. So you should kind of think back to what took place here a few months ago that turned out certain members of this board voted against some coaches. That turned out those people did things that were inappropriate around our children. Just remember that. When you're all coming in here complaining, remember that we are here for the safety of the kids.
So, Mr. Morris, I'm going to point to a specific thing that I said just to clarify what I mean by this. I think if I'm
not talking about football. I'm just talking in general here.
Yep, absolutely. So it is my understanding, and you're right, I was not on the board at the time that policy was looked at last. It is my understanding that the change to the policy was to make it an annual renewal. I'm not advocating to change that language at this time. I'm advocating to change the practice of if we have an application open for a coach and it closes, which happens 2 weeks after it's posted at the end of the season, that then it is brought to the board for approval at that time rather than about 4 or 5 months later, just so that coach can then start working with liability free with students because of that official appointment.
Fair enough, but at the same time, how long does it take to do the surveys? Anyone who can answer that in the room?
The end of season?
Mm-hmm. How long does it take to return those? And how many surveys constitutes a valid survey by the school?
I believe the fall surveys, we give about 2 weeks once they're sent out to get them back in.
Just for the record, how many were received?
I don't know off the top of my head. I want to say between parents. It depends on the sport. If we're talking specifically about football.
How many people play football?
How many?
Yeah, how many
are on the roster?
How many athletes are there? How many are on the team? So, say we had 22 return their surveys. Is that a valid survey?
Yeah, I mean,
22 out of 60?
Mathematically,
It's more than, it would be the player and the parents. So if it was 80 players, it would be 240 potential respondents.
Okay, thank you.
So to get at a couple of different points that people were discussing, I'm just going to throw out this. what folks are talking about in terms of there's policy, and then obviously there are procedures. So I would always want procedures to come from the administrators that are in charge of those programs. So if there's something that the board wants to consider or see differently, then I would rather charge the AD working with the assistant superintendent to bring a draft that the board could consider, as opposed to that.
To clarify, I think what Alice was asking, though, is not so much as changing the policy, but drafting an administrative guideline to execute that policy. Is that something the administration that your team could prepare?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something that we could work on. It wouldn't be for the next meeting, but it would be for this. We could do it this spring.
Okay, the way that the time sensitive nature of it to me is more why I'm bringing it up now, in the sense that I don't know what timeline that looks like for you guys, but if this position is wrapped up tonight, you know what I mean?
I mean, as Dr. Master mentioned, the position closes tonight.
Correct, and then the interview process.
There'll be an interview process. So our plan would be that when someone is selected for that position, that we bring all of the fall coaches forward, and not just football, because that's what they're working on. You know what I mean? Which would be way earlier than August.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yes, I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So at the lining that up with the end
Correct.
of your particular search that you're conducting now.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Does that work for you, Alice? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just see it as a need that, when this position is closed and we have a recommended candidate, that we can approve it then, so that they can get started.
Yeah, just from being in like 4 school districts in 2 states, you're always going to have outliers. Like, you're still looking for an ex-coach, when fall rolls around. So it's best to do it as early as you can. And then for sports where they haven't found anybody yet, you just put TBD and then add those folks as you find them.
Yeah, and the way I see it too, which I think this goes hand in hand with that working pretty well, is that the lead person responsible for what's happening with kids at that time is the head coach, whomever that may be. So anybody working with that person can certainly be approved more officially at a later date as well. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time
So
on
the
that.
bottom line is 30 to 60 days, we'll know what's going on. Is that the bottom line? Whoever the administration picks? And so this can all go behind us? I mean, this is ridiculous.
We would like to. We would like to get interviews completed so that we could bring all the fall coaches forward for the next board meeting, if possible.
So okay.
I'm hoping.
All right.
That's the plan.
Are we good on all the other sports?
Yes, so far.
So this is our last thing, and we're good. All right.
Mike, hold on.
Okay, Michelle?
So I think we all know that I'm pretty much the reason we had the issues with the coaches 2023. And I think I had some pretty valid reasons to be concerned by that coach then. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think I was always given the absolute truth by the administration. And I wasn't always given the absolute truth by members of this board. And in 2021, when I joined this board, my opinion of Coach Heiser was tainted by a whole lot of emails very first emails that I ever received. And so I just wanted to say, I think I made a mistake originally in just taking the word of a few people here that told me I should do this or do that. And then I heard kids. And granted, I heard kids when we were talking about a tennis coach. But this is completely different because I read those kids' emails. I read a lot of those emails and I reread them. I read emails from kids who don't even play here anymore. And that's what got my attention. And that's what made me think that, you know what? We need to start listening to these kids. So I don't really know what's going to happen here. I'm really disappointed in some of these board members after hearing some of the things I've heard tonight. I'm disappointed. And Mike, you can sit there with a smirk on your face all night. I don't care. You guys got to be quiet too. Can anybody tell me, how much is this training from WellSpan costing us?
The training is $350 per session.
Well, I can tell you right now that Ms. Broadway and I had actually talked about exactly what she had just asked about, and making sure that all of our coaches, I didn't realize, I never had kids that play football. For me, I went to a band performance and a football game broke out, okay? I'm a band parent. I was a soccer mom for years. I was employed by the district as the soccer mom. I didn't realize how much time and effort went into football in the off season. I thought you guys showed up in August and that was your thing. So Ms. Broadway and I were actually in agreement that, yes, we should be making sure that once the coaches are recommended, hired, whatever, at that point, we should probably do a rolling, ongoing hiring of coaches, because there is a liability issue. And we didn't do that with soccer. You know, we had open fields. You show up. If you show up, if you didn't, you didn't. It was no big deal. Finding out how much the football team actually participates and does in the off season, and how many kids show up, it's pretty awesome. And quite frankly, regardless of how many evaluations came back, there weren't any that came back that were bad. Dr. Matzner agreed with that. He mentioned that a few board meetings ago. I really can't see why we're here, other than I think a few of us were played into thinking there was something going on when apparently there wasn't. So for me, I apologize to all of you for getting you all in this mess, because you shouldn't be here.
Thank you for listening to the kids. That's the most important thing that nobody else did. You listen to the kids.
So let's get this solved, and let's get somebody approved, and let's get that person hired, so that whatever training goes on, they're covered under liability. And Fairfield's happy, we're happy, hopefully, and we can all move on.
I have a question. What about the assistant coaches? Are they in place?
Usually the head coaches are the ones that hire the assistants, so I would say until we have a head coach, then no.
My question is this weight room thing. I want the weight room open for the kids, so what can we do in the interim? What can athletics do to keep?
Well, that's why we have WellSpan coming twice a week to run sessions for our kids, Mondays and Thursday evenings.
I disagree with this from a point of view that we pay people here to do this. Why are we hiring outside entities to do this?
No one's being paid as a coach right now.
I understand that, but at the same time, this is ridiculous. You see our budget? I mean, I don't agree with this. All right. What can we do? 2 days a week is BS, guys. Come on. My kids do.
There's no kids going to show up.
Hold on. All I'm saying is I have kids in sports, and they're using weight rooms, and they're active all the time, and I know they're in it right now. But at the same time, they have organized stuff off season. You mean to tell me that we can't have someone in a gym, anyone, I don't care. we'll figure it out, we'll budget it. But someone in the gym every day so they can use the weight room if they want. Any student can. That should be a policy. When I went to school in Jersey, we always had the weight room open after school. Always. Why can't we just do that and make it easy? At least for right now. Is that something we can do?
Wanting it to happen and finding the actual individuals are two different things. That's why we went to the WellSpan thing.
Okay, that's great. I'll do it. I'll donate my time. I mean, come on. You're talking about an adult with clearances to go in there and just monitor kids working out, at least at a very minimum. Is that unrealistic? I'm not putting you on the spot, but I mean, come on, this is frustrating now. I'm tired of the emails. I want something done so that the kids can go to the gym and they could get ready for next year while we figure out this coaching thing.
And that's what we tried to figure out a way to get the weight room open. We could not find people willing to do it, so that's why we went the path we went.
So for prerequisite for any other job, right? If you come in and you do things to get that job, why wouldn't a coach that's going to be coming in next year, most likely will be coming back next year, right? The assistant coaches, why wouldn't someone step up to that?
So
we have
come on. You can help us out with this, right? Liability, if they sign whatever they have to sign with the school district, can they not be in there? Me as a parent, can I not do that?
I mean, they still have to be supervised,
right?
So the response and weight rooms are a unique part of with any school district relative to liability. So you can't, we're not asking anyone to waive all their rights when they're in there. We have to be reasonably responsible and not negligent when we host people in our facilities and make sure they're up to date. And we need to have supervision by someone who understands the environment. That's the basics.
So part of the issue that's arisen through this, which I'll make that. I know we're working on the policy. I don't need to plug the policy again, but I think part of that issue of we've been operating on the good faith of the coach in place who is assumed to be the coach in the future to be doing some of these things before we officially approve the contract. So yes, I mean, as a teacher myself, if my students need something, then yes, I'm going to go do that. But my contract in my school district is year long. So whenever mine's done, I sign a new one. That means that I then have the right to be with those students doing those things in off-school time. So I think it's wise not to be doing those things without that coverage from the school district as an employee.
Okay, I hear you what you're saying there, but at the same time, what I heard a few board meetings ago, that these kids were actively engaged in getting ready, right? They were training. Those coaches were coming here and doing that. They didn't have a contract. So now we're screaming liability, but we weren't doing that a few meetings ago?
So I did mention this back in August when we first approved the fall coaching contracts. I was at my band camp requirements in Mechanicsburg, and I called in and I said that I thought that was a liability concern. So now we're finally moving forward to do something about it. I can't answer to what every coach does, but I think some of that is important, again, now that we have this information, that we change it. I appreciate the fix in the meantime. Sure. It's a frustrating situation that is partly caused by us, so I appreciate the fix. I also think that I don't place any blame for a second on coaches that took a step back when they realized that existed kind of in a weird limbo. But I appreciate the fix, and I do think for a certain extent you did just say, too, that ideally this would only exist for another couple weeks.
Correct.
So that's what we're looking at. I think it's a little bit late to fix that now in a different way, but appreciate the proactivity of our athletic director and assistant superintendent there.
I also received an email I wanted to answer to. Were the summer camps canceled?
I believe that, to be perfectly honest, I'm not 100% sure. I believe that Coach Heiser may have canceled at least one or two. I know that our athletic director has reached out to those places to make sure that we get those scheduled back again.
Okay. Was there a reason he canceled them?
I maybe just remind the audience that this is not an interactive meeting and we will have order.
Well, my question is this a retaliatory thing, or why were they canceled? The kids are still...
That I can't answer. I can't answer.
It's a question, that's all. I'm getting getting emails saying things are canceled, and I'm just wondering, is that a school thing that
The district did not cancel those, no.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
There are also things put in place by the active coach, correct?
Correct.
So again, in an absence of one officially being approved, I think that then goes to the athletic director. So thank you for stepping in to try and reorganize those things. But that would be under the same umbrella then of any other coaching duties for that contract.
I mean, all right. I'm asking questions because
Understood.
if we're getting fired emails, constantly, daily, I want to be able to answer stuff.
Sure.
And,
No, the district did not cancel any of the camps over the summer. And I know that we did reach out to at least one assistant coach about the weight room, and we were told from him that he did not want to do it.
That brings us to our calendar of board events. Our next board meeting will be April 7th, 2025 at 7 p.m. in the administration building. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Dickerson, if I could, real quickly, just to report two things. One, about the update to the board to the negative account balances for food service, approaching $25,000. And the other one, of good news, is the Steve Litton Memorial Fund has now reached $6,500.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
This meeting is adjourned.